The President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin.
Премьер-министр Лаосской Народно-Демократической Республики Сонсай Сипхандон. Премьер-министр Монголии Гамбажавын Занданшатар. Заместитель председателя Постоянного комитета Всекитайского собрания народных представителей.
Deputy Chairperson of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress, Li Han-chong, and Marina Rybakova, the moderator of the plenary session. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, distinguished honorary guest, Mr. President, foreign participants, viewers, the early birds that woke up in the western part of Russia to see our plenary session. We will hear from our honorary guests, but in the beginning, perhaps I can steal the thunder, if you don't mind, Mr. President, just a couple of minutes. Let me explain. Here is the situation. I want to confess, I'm not an economist. I'm a TV anchor, and I'm an ex-lawyer, and I come from Moscow. You know, I'm into humanities, but I do my shopping very often. I look at the price tags at the shops, and sometimes I'm surprised. Indeed, I don't understand much about economy, and in order to find the answers, sometimes you use video hosting that is slowed down in Russia. And that's where economists tell you that, oh, everything's bad, there's inflation, the budget is under crunch. Then you visit some other hosting, and other economists say, oh, everything's just fine and dandy. And we're in for breakthroughs, and we're going to emerge victorious. And just like any Russian, any ordinary Russian, I have a question now. Who am I to believe? Mr. President, who am I to believe out of all those economists?
You know, I have already answered such questions. You should not believe anyone. You should be guided by your own experience, and you should listen to the opinion of not simple people who are on the internet, but you should go to the experts if you want to delve into the crux of the matter. I'm not going to say anything that would be groundbreaking, but if we resort to the experts, opinions differ, and the questions that you pose, well, they only seem simple. You have mentioned pricing. Well, price growth is about inflation. A central bank is fighting against this inflation. It tries to get back to the well-known indicators, no more than 4%. But hence, this is related to high interest rate, and this raises questions among those who deal with real production, and probably those who are in this audience would say that is an outrage. We need to decrease the interest rate, but hence it would trigger the price hike. The only thing that I would like to say, I would like to assure you, Russian financial authorities and the Russian government, the central bank, are acting professionally. And let me highlight, we have always been guided by the fact that the basic condition for the development of Russian economy and hence the social sector is the sustainable macroeconomic policy. We have been pursuing it for many years, at least for 15 years. And at the end of the day, this yielded positive impact, positive result. It created conditions for the progress in the country. And I'm positive that this will be the case in this case.
Thank you very much. Maybe I haven't made myself clear in the beginning, but one thing I want to emphasize is that today I'm going to talk about economy. I want to talk about economy, not, using some highbrow formula, but not about institutional economy, but rather a kind of economy that is well understood for a regular resident of Vladivostok, for your ordinary family, something that myself and people like myself are interested in. Let me explain how our procedure will look like. I think the format is well familiar. First, we will have the formal part, the presentation of our distinguished guests and Mr. President, and then we will continue with the Q&A session. I do hope it is going to be a discussion, but I'm not sure if we make it, it's kind of hard to argue with Mr. President, but I will try. And now it is my pleasure to recognize presidents of the country hosting the forum. Mr. President, over to you.
Excellency Mr. Sonsai Sipandon, Excellency Mr. Zandarshata, Excellency Mr. Liu Huanjun, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to address the Russian audience right now, and I kindly ask you to greet all foreign guests. On my behalf, I would like to express my appreciation to foreign guests that came to us, that show interest in working with us, and they deemed it possible to spend their precious time. Russia, Vladivostok once again welcome participants and guests of the Eastern Economic Forum coming from over 70 countries of the world. This year, the forum is taking place for the 10th time already. Let me remind you that the idea to organize it was implemented at the beginning of the new stage for the development of the Russian Far East, at the beginning of the huge effort that seeks to create broad opportunities for citizens, the youth, primarily for the business, to fully unlock resource, industrial, logistical potential of the strategically important region of Russia, to increase the living standards of those who live here. Today's anniversary Eastern Economic Forum is not just an occasion to take stock of joint actions of authorities, businessmen, civil society, but also to outline future steps, our long-term plans in the Russian Far East, to enhance its role both in the Russian economy and in the international relations system, primarily in the dynamically developing Asia-Pacific. As you know, the development of the Russian Far East and Siberia was outlined as the national priority of Russia for the whole 21st century. It was stipulated in the address of the Federal Assembly in late 2013. Later on, we started shaping and updating the legal framework. We have launched the whole set of tools to support business, including advanced development territories, the regimes of the free port of Vladivostok, and the preferential regime on the Kuril Islands, the special administrative area in the Ruski Island. We have launched large-scale plans to strengthen transport, energy, utilities infrastructure. We made decisions to support housing construction, repair and building of social facilities, schools, kindergartens, clinics, hospitals, sports facilities. And these efforts are brought together in a great state program for the development of the Russian Far East. It outlines ambitious goals of advanced economic and technological growth, improving the prosperity of citizens of the Far Eastern regions of Russia. And these efforts yield expected results. Over the past years, on many key indicators, primarily economy-wise, the Russian Far East has ranked top, outpacing the national rate. For instance, over a decade, the gross regional product of the Russian Far East has increased by more than 2.5 times, from 4 trillion rubles to 11 trillion rubles. Over this period, the fixed capital of the Far Eastern companies and enterprises got 20 trillion rubles of investment, and a quarter of them was invested in the projects with state support in such areas as mining, industry, petrochemicals, construction, and so on. I would like to name the top regions for investment over the past decade. Yakutia, 4.5 trillion rubles. The Amur region, 4 trillion rubles. The Sakhalin region, 2.6 trillion rubles. They account for 55% of the whole investment in the Far Eastern Federal District. The dynamics of the investment in the Far Eastern regions is such that last year they doubled the figures from 10 years ago in real terms. For reference, in Russia overall it proved to be 1.5 times higher. It is also a good result, but still it is better in the Far East. Today, the Russian Far East gets double the investment per capita if we compare it with the national figures. What does it mean? It means that we're shaping not just a modern industrial base, but basically the new industrial map of the region. That's what it means. It already has and gets thousands of new growth hubs, including world-class enterprises such as the Baimsky mining and processing plant in Chukotka, the Udakan copper in the Baikal region, the gas processing plant and the gas chemical facility in the Amur region, the Nakhodka fertilizing plant, as well as the Zvezda shipbuilding complex in Primorye, hydrometallurgical plant in the Khabarovsky region, and other facilities. The growing business entrepreneur activities, expanding economic opportunities of the Russian Far East is the foundation for future development of the region. It is important to keep the sustainable momentum in traditional sectors in areas that are already on the rise. It is necessary to develop infrastructure logistic ties to ensure reliable supplies of affordable and clean energy and resources, of course. I would like to note that the mineral base of the Russian Far East and the mining in the region is expanding. The mining of coal and gold in the region over the past 10 years have increased by almost 1.7 times, including thanks to the subsoil licensing following an application. This principle allowed us to attract private investment more actively in the geological exploration to increase manifold the number of new field discoveries, including such large fields as the gold and copper deposit Lugakan in the Baikal region and gold and silver deposit Roman in Yakutia. I would like to specifically mention rare and rare earth metals that are used in high-tech sectors in instrument engineering, nuclear engineering, radio electronics, and so on. Oftentimes, these resources are piling up in dumps during the exploration, including here in the Far East. And the system for accounting such stocks has been put in place. Once the technologies are developed, they can be extracted and used. I've talked about the relevant programs at St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. At the same time, we need to regularly take stock of such valuable components throughout the whole chain, including during the processing and export as components and as concentrates. Besides that, we need to introduce cutting-edge technologies to enrich ore of rare and rare earth metals and their processing, and to boost their demand inside Russia in new production facilities. 6 months ago, in February, we agreed to adopt a long-term plan for the development of rare earth industry. I asked the government of Russia to do that no later than November this year. Next point. On the eve of the plenary session, we had a meeting on the energy of the Russian Far East. I believe that many of you noted that. And clearly, with the development of economy and social sector, the need in energy in the region would only grow. And thus, we need to plan the commissioning of capacities in such a way so they would meet the growing demand of business, cities, and towns and cities. We are talking about the development of gas, modern coal generation, as well as nuclear generation, and certainly the use of huge potential of hydro energy. In the rivers of the Russian Far East, there already are and should be new hydropower plants. They generate green energy, and their construction requires modern engineering solutions. And our leading company, Hydro, has such best practices. But clearly, to develop hydro energy, we need to have serious capital investment. The instructions have already been given, and I expect that the government and the colleagues in regions will continue to focus on the development of small and big hydropower plants. Let me highlight, in this case, we are not just talking about economy. Part and parcel for the development of hydro energy is the responsible water management, long-term flow management, flood prevention. It has a direct impact on environment, agriculture, and security of cities and towns. And certainly, the rivers of the Russian Far East are natural transport routes. They link territories, they ensure supplies of cities and towns within the northern delivery. In this regard, a separate issue is logistics. Over the past years, the load on transport system of the Far East has increased significantly. The region strengthens its ties with foreign countries, and this requires upgrading of car and railroad routes, expanding marine terminals, creating modern transport hubs with robotic warehouse and digital cargo processing. We'll continue to upgrade the Eastern Railway network, the Baikal-Amur Main Line, and the Trans-Siberian Railway. In 2032, the throughput capacity should be increased to 270. Should be increased 2 times than we have in the beginning of this year. We are to further expand rail access to seaports. They are dynamically developing thanks to private investors. Over the past decade, the port capacity in the region have been doubled, and currently they amount to almost 380 million tons of cargo per year. In line with existing federal projects, the port capacities of the Russian Far East should increase to 2030 to 115 tons of cargo per year in addition. We have already built transport bridges to China, Nizhny-Leninsk, Tunzan, and Blagoveshchensk-Heihe. We also plan to build new bridges, including to the DPRK through the Tuman River. It should be opened next year. We need to actively develop transport and logistic hubs close to these bridges in order to use their capacities, throughput capabilities as much as possible. Besides that, we modernize border crossings. Such task has already been set, and it is interesting to implement it because it's not enough just to have one transport artery. We need to have the relevant logistics infrastructure. Let me also add that in each region of the Russian Far East, we modernize airports. They already service over 40 million passengers per year, including tourists that visit these picturesque sites more often. In this regard, I would like to note the WebRF initiatives and the development of 12 new master plans for the development of resorts in Sakhalin and Kamchatka. It would allow us to double the number of tourists over the next decade coming in these regions. I would like to note landmark events, for instance, the resuming of flights between Vladivostok and Pyongyang after the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the launch of a direct flights between the capitals of Russia and the DPRK. The flight via this route took place in late July, and a month before that, we resumed the running of through cars between Moscow and Pyongyang. I'm positive that these decisions will help bring our countries closer together and establish more solid ties. Certainly, especially important topic both for the Russian Far East and for our country, for the whole Eurasian continent, is the development of Trans-Arctic Transport Corridor. It goes from St. Petersburg via Murmansk, Arkhangelsk, and Northern Sea route to Vladivostok. We see that there's a growing interest in this route, both from Russian companies working in the Arctic and foreign companies as well. And we're not just talking about single one-time transits, we're talking about shaping of a sustainable cargo base. We will develop the Trans-Arctic corridor. We often talk about the Northern Sea route, but if you pay attention, I have mentioned the Trans-Arctic corridor because we decided that we need to think bigger, and we want this artery to operate together with all the territories adjacent to the Northern Sea route and with all the capacities. So this should be a comprehensive system. It should unite sea, railroad, motor transport. It would allow us to use the capacities of the largest rivers, such as Ob, Yenisei, and Lena. Everything should work as one system. We are not simply to build reliable, safe maritime routes and ensure all-year operation of the Trans-Arctic corridor. We are to work on the coast as well. I'm talking about the development of communication and navigation, the vessel maintenance and emergency infrastructure, and certainly modernization of seaports in the Arctic and in the Russian Far East. By the way, yesterday we opened the multimodal complex Artyom here in the Primorsky region. It processes containers that are shipped from the Russian Far East to the Russian Far East, both from abroad and from the Russian regions. It should increase the efficiency of the northern delivery. It is crucial that such modern transport logistic hubs in our country to grow in numbers and to develop, to ensure that deliveries are faster and more efficient. And let me highlight that in such hubs, in logistics centers, it is important to use cutting edge, including unmanned technologies. Next point, the Trans-Arctic corridor should benefit primarily the Russian economy and our regions of the Far East, Siberia, and the Arctic. It should take into account the cooperation between them and open new business opportunities. Hence, I would like to highlight two important areas of development. First, the establishment of modern shipbuilding centers. They should produce the whole range of vessels working on this route, from tugboats and auxiliary ships to bulk carriers and ice-class LNG carriers, as well as ultra-powered icebreakers. And secondly, in order to increase the efficiency of the Trans-Arctic corridor, we need to establish new hubs. And I kindly ask the colleagues from the Maritime Board to assess these ideas, whether they are reasonable, and to give their proposals in this regard. Back in the day, good impetus for the economic growth and private initiative in the Russian Far East was given by new and cutting-edge initiatives for our countries. For instance, the advanced development territories. I would like to remind you that the law on these territories was adopted in late 2014, and the mechanism was launched the next year, in 2015. The task was to ensure that the Russian Far East has truly globally competitive business conditions. That is why we developed these regimes, building upon best practices of business investment climate, including of the Asia-Pacific. What are the benefits provided by this mechanism today? Well, colleagues know about them, mainly. Nevertheless, for our guests, I would like to reiterate that. First of all, these are lowered insurance premiums rates. 7.6% for next year, for 10 years, the zero federal income tax for 5 years, reduced regional income tax. For the first 5 years, it would be 0 to 5% and 10% for the next 5 years. A preferential rate for mineral tax. Besides that, the advanced development territories provide for a free customs zone, as well as partial reimbursement of infrastructure costs and preferential business loans. Why am I talking so much detail on the terms of the advanced development territories? They are unique for the business, not simply for our countries, but also for many other countries, for our colleagues and friends from other countries. The instrument has proved to be efficient. It allowed us to launch many investment projects and to systemically support businessmen and companies at the most important stage, at the construction stage, when the production is streamlined and when the full design capacity is reached. 18 territories were established in the Far East, where 300 residents are operating. They invested almost 4 trillion rubles of investment, creating 95,000 jobs. The government has repeatedly made decisions to expand the borders of specific advanced development territories to fit new projects. And given the accumulated successful experience, I suggest we make a drastic step. Seamlessly preserving terms for active investors to launch throughout the whole territory of the Russian Far East and Arctic the united preferential regime for business starting from January 1st, 2027. We're talking about making it easier to support businessmen, companies, and their new projects. In other words, no matter where investor comes, in any Russian Far Eastern or Arctic region, city or settlement, he will always have the right to benefits. Let me highlight, as we launch the united preferential regime, we will keep the terms for active investors in the advanced development territories. There should be no worries about possible changes. Namely, we're talking about residents of the international advanced development territories. This tool provides for more extended income tax benefits and the so-called grandfather clause. Everybody in the audience knows about that, but let me reiterate, we're talking about unchanged working conditions for 15 years, as well as tailored approach and dedicated support to every investor, including foreign companies. The legal framework is ready, and from the 1st of January 2026, international advanced development territories will be operating in the Baikal region, Amur region, Jewish Autonomous region, the Khabarovsk Krai, and Primorye region. We invite all those interested partners to benefit from this new opportunity. Getting back to the united preferential regime in the Far East, I would like to know the following. The specific sets of benefits, the specific modalities, time frame, and sectors are yet to be determined by the government together with the colleagues in the far eastern regions of Russia. What is crucial there and what this decision should be focused on. Building upon achieved results in mining and processing industry, solid infrastructural basis, we need to launch the new stage for the development of the Russian Far East. We need to shape the economy of the future with drastic improvement of the living conditions in cities and settlements and training of highly skilled personnel, high-tech projects. That is the essence of the new stage, basically. We need to ensure that the territory of the Russian Far East is the territory that will see the development of high-tech projects. I believe that that is clear, but still we're talking about vast territories, not that much population. It has vast space and there's a lot of room for jobs, for the development. We have already launched national projects to ensure technological leadership of the country. And on the basis of each of these projects, I instruct the government to develop and approve the relevant program for the development of the Russian Far East and the Arctic. To have a technological leap, we need to have a bolder approach to regulation, to the legal framework of doing business. They should give a green light to innovation. They should boost the development of cutting-edge solutions and their introduction into pilot and large-scale production in social area and daily life. For instance, Sakhalin already has this pilot legal regime.
We need to enable rapid field testing of unmanned technologies. I would like to ask the government to create a wider application of these technologies in agricultural land, in nature conservation and management, in production and logistic platforms. We do not have threats here when develop these technologies here as we have in other condensed populated areas. For example, forest fires occur in vast territories, and we have the opportunity to react to these fires with the use of unmanned technologies. We have other opportunities on these vast territories of using modern technology. It is here where we need to use them, and it requires that the personnel be trained. And for the personnel to be trained, what is that we need to do? We need to create conditions for people to live here, to want to live here. We need to develop social area, cultural area, and so on. Otherwise, we won't have the personnel and we won't have the people who would develop these technologies. This is a complex task. It is obvious that such solutions will be required not only in Sakhalin, but in other areas of the Far East, including in Amur region, in Zabaykalye, in Chukotka region, and so on. In this regard, I consider it possible to extend this experimental legal regime for unmanned systems in all Far Eastern regions and expand it, first of all, for such areas as the use of digital platforms, artificial intelligence, and data turnover. In June, during the St. Petersburg Economic Forum, I spoke about the importance of the use of the benefits of electronic marketplaces. Within the experimental legal regime, I propose to use the infrastructure, national infrastructure of digital platforms for state and municipal procurement in the area of education. And what's more, the Far East should become the leading region of digital development of Russia, especially in the area of data turnover, with due regard to the requirements of privacy and security of such turnover. We are talking about this all the time. We will go back to this topic during the forum on artificial intelligence to take place by the end of this year. I hope that the government will prepare proposals for these systems. The next topic for development and adoption of technology to ensure timely production by 2030 in Russia will open at least 100 industrial, business and technological parks with the necessary platforms and communications. At least 10 of such parks are to be created in the Far East and in the Arctic regions of the country. I'm convinced that the modern infrastructure and opportunity will be in demand by the companies that are at the start of their projects or implement promising initiatives, including plan to manufacture products designed to substitute foreign equivalent, including construction materials, medical equipment, transport equipment, and so on. To stimulate the development of national production, we need to create wider conditions for wider use of the so-called offset contracts, when the investors invest in new factories, workshops, enterprises against guaranteed government orders. Also, it is important to develop the practice of offset contracts among the regions of Russia when the production is opened in one subject of the federation and the products under the guaranteed orders are supplied to several other regions. A separate issue with regard to the financing of innovative ideas and new technological projects. Here, the efforts of the state is important, but not only that, mostly the private investors attracting venture capital. A good example is a Voskhod fund that supported about 40 companies in robotics, medicine, space technology. I would like to ask the colleagues from the government to carefully study the experience of this fund and to help scale up the work of this fund to support other projects of technological leadership of Russia. Please pay attention to this in the first as a priority. It is important to develop in the Far East the transparent, modern, efficient financial ecosystem. We already have the Eastern Exchange, the stock exchange center of the East. I propose to continue working on that and develop financial channels, regulatory bases, incentives for placing corporate shares. Dear colleagues, the development of the Far East, of the Arctic, building the economy of the future should improve the well-being of people, increase their income, lead to structural changes in employment in favor of the skilled and well-paid jobs. This is the logic and the cross-cutting theme of the strategy that we are implementing in this region and all over the country. I would like to say once again, the economy of Russia should become a high-wage economy. And it's not nothing, it's not populism. There is an economic idea behind this. In the last 10 years, the average salary in the Far East increased 2.5 times, and by the results of the last year, it was more than 100,000 rubles per month. The unemployment level reduced from 7 to 2.5%. In all Far Eastern subjects of the Federation, the poverty level have declined. In most of them, it is still higher than the average in Russia, and we have something to work on here. But in general, the dynamics is good, it's positive. The general number for Russia from 2014 to 2024, the poverty level reduced from 11.3% to 7.2%. And among Far Eastern regions, the poverty level is lower than the average national average. In Sakhalin, it is 5.3%, Magadan 5.9%, in Chukotka region 4.4%. We remember that at the background of problems and hardships in the economy and social sphere in the end of the last century, people started to leave the Far East. It was a threatening tendency that was very hard to break. However, we are gradually succeeding. I would like to give us significant figures. From 2014, for over 5 years, the migration outflow in the Far East was 211,000 people. For the next 5 years, it reduced to 109,000 people. It's a big number, but it's a significant reduction to almost 2 times. In 2024, for the first time, we saw the migration inflow of 24,000 people. It's not a big number, but the fact of a change in trend is a serious achievement. What is of the most important to note, the young people started to go to the Far East from all over the country. Starting with 2015, for 9 years, we see the influx of young people aged 20 to 24. Last year only, it increased more than twice compared to the previous year. What does it mean? It means that here you can get an interesting profession, find a well-paid job, settle down, resolve housing issues, create family, bring up children. It is in the Far East where the future of our country is being created. Young people see and feel this clearly and react respectively. We will continue the development of the system of secondary and higher professional education in the region. We will constantly adjust it in accordance with the personnel requirements of the enterprises, take into account the labor market outlook with the development of new prospective areas of economy. It's been agreed to open university campuses in Yuzhno-Sakhalinsk and Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky, in Yakutsk, in Khabarovsk, in Blagoveshchensk, Ulan-Ude, and Chita. We are going to build the second line of the Far Eastern Federal University campus. Campuses, world-level campuses in Murmansk and Arkhangelsk. We are going to create all the necessary conditions to obtain high-quality, up-to-date knowledge. and will create the conditions for that. It is important to support not only those who are going to move to the region, but also who were born here, who live here and work. Those who, with their own hands, makes the forest and the entire Russia more successful. We need to achieve a steady improvement of the quality of life for the foresters and their families. The key task, the most important thing for the people to improve our economy is to resolve the issue of housing. For 10 years, in 10 years, the foresters should reach the higher level than average in Russian. For 22 forest cities, we prepared master plans that include the tasks of the economic development and designed to create modern and comfortable environment for life, with the renovation of housing and communal infrastructure, development of public spaces, parks, boulevards, children and sporting grounds, with the modernization of the social area. Master plans are being implemented, and as of today, within the framework of the master plans, 160 objects have been commissioned, including we built embankments, children parks in Komsomolsk on Amur, Stadium on Ulan-Ude, and the shipyard was modernized. Public square was opened in Yakutsk. Construction of the local hospital was finished in Kamchatka. A lot depends on the cooperation locally, on how competently aspects of urban agglomerations management are taken into account, and it covers several municipalities. I would like to ask the government, together with the colleagues from the region, to test in the pilot mode the mechanisms of such cooperation in Vladivostok agglomeration, and then, based on the experience received by 2030, consolidate the mechanism in the regulatory framework. By the end of 2030, in the forest and Arctic master plans, we are to commission another 60 objects. For the creation of these objects, it is important to use advanced solutions for design and construction. To finance the master plans, we agreed to create within the national projects special sections devoted to the forest and the Arctic, and to send to the master plans 5% of the costs of the specialized state programs in the social area, infrastructure, and so on. I would like to ask the Ministry of Finance to pay attention that these decisions have been taken. Yes, there is a lot of work there. We need to be attentive to all the programs, but I would like to ask you to allocate 5% to these means and resolve the tasks of the region. During the last forum, I instructed to allocate a separate limit for the Treasury infrastructure loans for master plans of the cities of Forest and the Arctic up to 2030. For this means 100 billion rubles will be allocated for construction and renovation of the infrastructure. Such projects from the regions are being selected locally and started by the government. I would like to note that the resources are provided to the forested regions in addition to the existing instruments of the so-called infrastructure menu. These are the funds from the National Welfare Fund, infrastructure bond issue financing within the framework of the federal project modernization of municipal infrastructure and housing. All this is an important contribution for the development of housing construction in the forest, to increase the affordability of housing for families in the forest. In 2015, in the region, we commissioned 2.9 million square meters of housing, and the last year it was 4.7 million. The great role was played by the mechanism of the forest quarter with incentives for developers and the program of the forest and Arctic mortgage with 2% interest that was designed for young families, families with children, participants of the program Forest and Arctic Hector. By in accordance with this mortgage program, we provided 165,000 loans. We prolonged the program up to 2030 and included the participants of the special military operation, employees of defense industry, enterprises, doctors, and workers from the educational area. Well, there were certain age limits, but I would like to note that the ability to get the mortgage with 2% interest rate, this opportunity shall be given not only to the teachers, but to all workers of the educational and municipal educational facilities. I would like to ask the government to introduce certain changes in the regulatory basis. These are the money that even in today's conditions are possible to be allocated for these purposes. I would like to propose to use the mortgage of the Arctic and Far East, not only for the primary but for the secondary market of the housing, but only in those cities where the high-rise buildings are not being constructed and where there are no offers from the developers. We need to take into account the year of the construction of the house when the housing is purchased with the mortgage. Please work on this issue. We have discussed this topic already, and this task shall be resolved with the loans and in accordance with the normative basis. The decision shall be taken immediately. The housing issue is one of the key issues to improve the demographic situation in the Far East. There is an increased payment when the third child is born in the family. It is not 450,000 rubles, as everywhere in the country, but 1 million ruble. And it is justified. Altogether, it gives the results required. Young people started to go to the Far East. The first, this measure of support was introduced in Primorye and then in other 7 regions. When the third and other children are born in the families in the Far East, the number of these families increased to a quarter. The payment of 1 million rubles is sent to the repayment of the mortgage. I consider it reasonable to make this mortgage accessible for all families in the region that have 3 or more children. I would like to note that it shall be available for all families with more than 1 child, independently from the age of the parents. There was a limit, 35 years old, but now women give birth to children when they are older than 35, 40, and older. The more children we have, the better. Families in the Far East, families with children, shall have access to social facilities, polyclinics, kindergartens, schools, and hospitals. In the Far East, in the remote areas and villages, an approach is needed when such facilities are being constructed by the businesses, by the strategic partner who is implementing large investment projects, and have the large-scale production in this or that locality. I would like to remind that last year we agreed to create this mechanism, which is very convenient for our businesses to be able to use their own funds to build social facilities and enterprises, and then transfer these constructions to the region, to the municipality, but with the compensation of their costs, with the compensation through the payment from the future taxes when the enterprise is in operation. I would like to pay the attention of the government that together with the corporation Webrefer, the work shall be conducted. And this instrument shall be implemented widely using the resources of the budget provided for the investment tax credit, and actively use the Institute of Public-Private Partnership and Concessions. In this regard, I hope that the cooperation with VAP will be fruitful to further improve the Institute of Public-Private Partnerships and Concessions. I'm talking about the improving of the model of financing in this area. We need to ensure transparency and general understanding of the conditions of private-public partnership with businesses in socially important projects. This is an easy mechanism. There is nothing difficult to understand here, and the load for the cover for the budget is not that big. Dear colleagues, the Far East of Russia, the Asia-Pacific region, is a territory of dynamic changes and rapid development. We need to maintain a high pace of positive change, improve the infrastructure of the national economy, improve technological capabilities, and to use more efficiently resources, production, logistic, and science potential that the Far Eastern regions have and the country in general has. For this, we need to actively test, widely introduce bold, innovative solutions in the regulatory framework, the conditions of operation of businesses in solving problems that define the quality of life of our citizens. These are the approaches that have been approved here in the Arctic and in the Far East. We will continue working on them, adjust them to the demands of the population, and in accordance with the requirements of the businesses, in accordance with the national interests of Russia. In this work, the systematic, comprehensive approach is important, the ability to look ahead, see the prospects, set big goals, and calculate plans to achieve them. That is why, by the results of the current forum, I'd like to give the instruction to the government to approve a long-term development strategy for the Far Eastern Federal District until 2036. I would like you to perform this work until the end of this year. There is a lot of work ahead here in the Far East, in the Arctic. And I would like to note, dear colleagues, that we are open for all who are ready to participate in this work. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. If I may, just as a follow-up, a small question to you. It looks like we are more or less clear the mid-term and long-term future of the Far East is well secured. But as the tradition goes, normally in Russia we have two largest economic forums, the Far Eastern Economic Forum focused on this region, Asia and the Pacific region, and of course the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum that has always served as a kind of a gateway to Europe. And it's quite symbolic if we are to look at the mascot of Russia, the two-headed eagle. One head of the eagle is looking to the west, the other to the east. You've just returned from your trip to China, to the SCO summit. And one gets the impression that the eagle, the mascot of Russia, is increasingly turning both of its heads towards the east. And we've seen newspaper covering it actively and showing photos of you and President Xi and Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and it's quite symbolic. It was mentioned by many media that this is a new union of the elephant, the dragon, and the bear. So my question is, what is the role of the bear in this union? What is the role of this bear? Well, a bear is a bear. Well, but the bear seems to be quite a husky animal, a harsh one. Well, you mentioned the double-headed eagle looking to the west and the east. Well, there is also south, you know. Well, it looks like that Russia is heading towards southeast, if I may say so. We've been discussing it with our colleagues repeatedly, and I've always been saying that expansion of our interaction and our joint work with our friends in the Asia-Pacific region, our cooperation with the global south, is not related or conditioned by the current political situation. Take example of my meeting with President Xi. We have started joint work with President Xi 20 years ago, and it is not at all conditioned by the current environment. It is conditioned by the mutual shared interests. Our economies complement one another. We're neighbors. We have a lot of shared interests, shared approaches, shared values, traditional values, by the way. I'd like to emphasize that. We in Russia had a good understanding of the development of the global economy. And the whole world knows well that the global economy is developing through advanced pace and primarily driven by the new growth drivers, new technologies, new advancements, and that is what we're focusing on. The more so that we have good neighborly relations with many countries, the People's Republic of China, of course, India, Indonesia. And look how quickly those countries are evolving. Indonesia has almost 300 million residents. This is a huge market. There are some smaller countries that are also evolving fast. Take example of Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam. We have particularly good relations with Vietnam that we've been nurturing for decades. It's only natural that we use those relations. It's not that we're pivoting somewhere. It's just a reaction to objective processes happening in the world and happening to the world economy. But we never refused from cooperation with those countries who are willing to cooperate with us, including other Asian countries. I do not want to put anyone at an inconvenient spot and to catch them there, but there is a number of companies from various countries that are still active at the Russian market. If they were to be guided by the current geopolitical environment, one may have expected them to leave, and they should be encountering some problems. They are, but they are still in Russia. They continue operating in Russia. More than that, they have plans to expand their presence. Due to political reasons, many European companies have chosen to leave. That's true. They left by making huge losses. We know that. We have contacts intact. Many are waiting. They are waiting, and they will wait long enough for the moment when the geopolitical limitations that are available now will fall, and then those companies would be willing to come back. We're not closing the door to anyone. We're not turning our back to anyone. We have a lot of stability and predictability in our foreign policy, including foreign economic policy. And I guess this is exactly one of the key competitive advantages of our country, because stability is crucial for business, especially if we are talking about business. So we are not turning our back on anyone. We haven't pushed anyone out of the country. Those who want to come back are allowed to come back based on the current situation and terms. Then, as a follow-up to the question and the ability for companies to come back, if I may, in fact, the interaction between the dragon and the elephant, it's not something that I said. President Xi used this metaphor, and later on the media added the bear to this triad. Of course, a bear is a symbol of Russia, but we're here at the Far East, and the biggest tiger in the world is the local tiger, the local breed here. The Amur tiger, naturally. Now, coming back to the issue of companies coming back, I guess we could agree that there is a global trend for protectionism. Some countries are closing up, focusing on their internal affairs and internal developments, as opposed to try and engage external competitors or investors. But once again, as I mentioned at the very beginning, I'm not an expert in the economy. It's just my observation. What do you think? This policy of protectionism, is it a greater good or is it something bad? That's something bad. That's bad to those applying principles of protectionism, and this is bad for global trade. It leads to separatism, regional and country-specific separatism. It brings no good to those who are trying to use protectionistic measures, because the world of today is extremely interconnected, simply due to the current technological development. And being all closed in your own silo as a country is no good, because it would inevitably lead to deterioration of international competitiveness of this country. So Russia stays open to cooperation with all countries of the world, first and foremost, open to those countries who are willing to work with us, our friends. But we are not self-isolating. And we believe, I'm sure the absolute majority of people seated in this room would agree, that this open position is favorable to everyone sharing this policy. Thank you. And now I'd like to give the floor to, well, as it goes in this situation, I would like to thank you for your support. Thank you for the applause, dear audience. Now I'd like to give the floor to the Prime Minister of the Laos People's Democratic Republic. The floor is yours, Your Excellency, Sonsai Siphandone. Please have the floor.
Vladimir Putin,
Your Excellency, Mr. Putin, President of the Russian Federation, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure and profound honor to have received the invitation from His Excellency President Putin to participate in the Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok, the Russian Federation. For the first time, on behalf of the government and the people of Laos PDR, I wish to extend my most sincere gratitude to His Excellency President Putin and the government of the Russian Federation for the warm welcome extended to me and the delegation from the Laos PDR. I also would like to offer my comments for the excellent hosting of the 10th Eastern Economic Forum today. I am confident that today's Eastern Economic Forum will serve as a driving force in promoting cooperation for economic, social, and cultural development, as well as for improving the livelihoods of the people in the Russia's Far East and the Asia-Pacific region. And today's meeting demonstrate the leading roles of Russia in enriching international cooperation through bilateral and multilateral cooperation in political and security and economy and technology and machinery. And in today's situation where complex and unpredictable changes of the world situation is going on, and today, because of the global geopolitical problems that stem from conflicting and national protectionist of some country to compete and to block the advancing of other countries. And also there are other problems such as climate change, natural disasters, and the rapid advancement of science and technology, and particularly artificial intelligence and food insecurity and energy. These issues are causing the economic hardship for many nations and to pose a challenge to regional and international peace, stability, security, and prosperity, both now and in the future. And solving these issues require cooperation among all nations through fundamental consultative and multilateral mechanisms. These are based on mutual respect and international law, which remains a suitable framework and should be reformed to better fit the current situation. And in accordance with today's forum's theme, cooperation for peace and prosperity is the most appropriate and timely given the current situation. For without peace, we cannot achieve prosperity, And conversely, without prosperity, peace will not be sustainable. We must work together to ensure that both peace and prosperity go hand in hand. Your Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the Far East region is composed of many countries that have high potential to further develop, and we see that the Russian Federation has been the main driving force for cooperation within the region through bilateral and multilateral platforms such as the BRICS Alliance, the Asia-Europe Cooperation, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, to further enhance the regional economic development. And based on the respect for independence, sovereignty, and mutual benefits, the government of the Lao PDR upholds its policy of open cooperation through bilateral and multilateral mechanisms. And we see that the cooperation and jointly deciding global issues and through the the international mechanisms remains the most effective and suitable. Therefore, our government gives highest priority to improving the environment to enable economic and trade and investment promotion, including the creations of industrial parks and specific economic zones across the country. And we have eliminated unnecessary obstacles and made investment more convenient and speedy. So we are improving the law on investment promotion, which has been in effect since late 2024. This law includes numerous incentives to attract both domestic and foreign investors to the Lao PDR, particularly in promising sectors such as agriculture, renewable energy, mineral exploration, processed agriculture products for domestic use and export, pharmaceuticals, education, technology development, services, tourism, transportation infrastructure, and logistics systems. Furthermore, as the only landlocked country in ASEAN, recognizes the importance of our strategic location, and therefore promoting policy of cooperation to transform itself from landlocked to a land-linked nation. The government has invested significantly in developing infrastructure and building a high-speed railway network within the country. And we are continuing to develop connectivity with neighboring friendly countries to become a regional hub for trade and investment. Tourism as well within the Lao PDR and on regional and international scale. Given these correct policies and clear vision, the Lao PDR has gained trust and has been able to foster unity and a prominent role in regional and international forums. Notably, in 2024, Lao PDR held the ASEAN Chairmanship under the theme ASEAN Enhancing Connectivity and Resilience and identified 9 priority areas for ASEAN cooperation, all centered around this theme and focusing on practical implementation of the 3 pillars of the ASEAN community. The Lao chairmanship of ASEAN was highly successful. ASEAN remains committed to its policy of centrality within the various cooperation frameworks. It has become a community dedicated to peace and regional cooperation, one that is unwaveringly in its adherence to mutual assistance in accordance with the ASEAN way. In line with this, the Lao PDR believes that strengthening ASEAN requires promoting closer economic connectivity among members. For this reason, the Lao PDR has consistently focused on fostering cooperation in regional integration and connectivity. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the Lao PDR is ready to cooperate with all nations to achieve the goals of promoting peace, stability, prosperity, and wealth in the region and internationally. In this spirit, I invite all of you to visit the Lao PDR to experience our rich culture and beautiful nature and to explore the potential and opportunities for promoting cooperation and various investments in the Lao PDR. On behalf of the government and people of Laos, I wish the 10th Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok a great success, and may it be a platform for us to exchange ideas freely, cooperate, and build a future where all parties have equal opportunities. I would like to express my sincere gratitude and congratulations to His Excellency President Vladimir Putin for an excellent job of hosting this forum, and I wish His Excellency President and all distinguished guests a robust health and success in your duties. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for these warm words. Thank you for the invitation. Yeah, I would like to go there. I've never been to Laos Republic. And what you have described, I would like to touch upon this most amazing thing. You are the largest exporter of power, of electric power. And there's a nickname. You are a battery of Asia, Pacific region. How have you managed to reach this level? Maybe there are some lessons for us to learn. President Putin was speaking about development of hydropower network. Maybe we can learn something from you.
But it's not as much as you describe. We are not a battery of Asia, but we have abundant sources of energy, more than 100 hydropower locations.
Технические с переводом. We don't translate it. Maybe later. Okay? Владимир Владимирович, придется тогда мне у вас спросить. Вчера у вас была большая встреча, вы говорили о топливно-энергетическом комплексе.
Right, then maybe we'll get back to you. My question is now for Mr. Putin. You spoke yesterday about large investments into the Far East, and yes, we speak about enormous amounts of money, and you spoke about serious goals. What are we going to do with all that? Money is not the most important thing. Most important is to identify priorities and ensure appropriate organization, also collaboration among various agencies and organizations should be ensured, and they all should work for the common goal. And regional authorities, on the one hand, should work with investors, and on the other hand, investors should guarantee. And I'm sure here in this audience there are colleagues who are planning to do something, and these investors they should guarantee, they should ensure that the power generated will be consumed. And then those who are going to generate it, then they will make sure that there will be enough capacity and the whole network and grid available. Then the investments will be working for everybody's benefits. So what is needed is collaboration. It is the connected work of all these agencies and investors. And then, yes, we speak about the demand, and there are various regulators and controlling authorities. They should carefully analyze how in the Arctic all these modern technologies can be and should be used. And if we ensure all this, then there won't be any problem with the financial side, and there will be great results and success, and this will be good for the federal budget, and this will mean tax revenues and all that. Right, what about coal industry? It goes through some difficult times, and yesterday you spoke about gas, and in the Far East probably there will be a lack of gas, and we need to enrich the supply here. So what should we start with in this respect? You referred to coal industry, and you said that now they're going through quite difficult times. Yes, this difficulty means that the size of our coal industry is quite high, but the situation in the market has changed. But largely, we need to focus on the domestic demand and our internal domestic market. We have a lot of coal. We produce a lot of coal, and you know, the whole stock is for 900 years, 9 centuries. But in order to utilize all the power resources, we need modern technologies. And this is what we need to develop. And if the domestic market will consume all this, then there won't be any problems and no difficult times. If this consumption is efficient, then there are no difficulties with the external, international markets, and then this influence will be minimized, and we can in such a way easily regulate the functioning of all industries, including the power industry. And this is one of our major goals. And as for the external situation, international markets, yeah, we need to take it into account. However, in order to be more flexible, more stable and sustainable, we need to focus our domestic consumption. Thank you very much. And now I'm inviting our next speaker, Prime Minister of Mongolia, Benjamin Zalan-Shatar. The floor is yours. Your Excellency, Mr. President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, Prime Minister of the Laos People's Democratic Republic, Mr. Sabhekhandon, and Prime Minister of Mongolia, and the Chair of the Permanent Committee of China. I'm happy to welcome you all at the Eastern Economic Forum, and the coverage has been expanding year by year, and I'm happy to take part in the 10th Eastern Economic Forum. The regular holding of the Eastern Economic Forum and discussion of regional and international economy issues, power and environment have played a great role for development of our countries. And this makes the dialogue in the Asia-Pacific region is most important. This forum will remain a great authoritative platform for such a dialogue. The slogan of this forum is Far East Cooperation in the name of peace and prosperity. I'm sure that this forum will define the future of our work. The large-scale social, economic, and other changes at the international arena leads us to quite difficult conditions. It is growth of prices, logistics, and other difficulties. I'm sure that the Far East region, where the majority of the population reside and 2/3 of the GDP of the world is located, will play a growing role. That is why we are interested in expansion of trade, investments, relations, especially with the states of the Asian and also Southeast Asia. In addition to economic advantages, we have natural resources, great professionals, and the government has been developing policies for expanding investments and industrial development. And in the past 3 years, the growth of economy in Mongolia it has been 6% on an annual basis, and it ensured a stable contribution to development of its regions. The government will continue diversification of the economy and will make sure that favorable environment is ensured for business and economic development. Dear ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, these days we are all celebrating 80 years since the end of the Second World War. This was a great historical deed of people of Russia, Mongolia, and China. These countries, who have always been neighbors and strategic partners, continue developing bilateral and tripartite relations, crossing all the borders and expanding the potential of mutually beneficial cooperation. 10 years ago, the leaders of these three countries signed the road plan for cooperation of Mongolia, Russia, and China, and defined the major areas of this cooperation. 3 days ago in China, there was a meeting of leaders of these countries, and they were speaking about future development. And Mongolia is committed to development of the Steppe Road and One Road, One Way, and other initiatives and development of the transport corridor with Russia and China. We are committed to ensure a stable work for expanding all these activities. The economic corridor between Mongolia and China is aimed at development under the comprehensive cooperation program, and this is for the benefit of all three countries. And this will ensure the increase of political trust and regional cooperation and integration. Mongolia has always assessed very highly implementation of 33 projects within this economic corridor, and we're absolutely sure that the foundation for such work, especially in the roads and transport network, will be supported by various financial institutions and international banks. Regular three-party meetings also promote development of such projects. The parties have agreed on construction of another gas pipeline via Mongolia, and I would like to reinstate our commitment to implement this mega project. We believe that this project will open up new economic opportunities. This project will ensure environmental benefits and strategic activities, and will be a very good example of cooperation of these three countries. Your Excellency, President Putin and Mr. Miller, I would like to thank you personally for this project. In addition to this, the countries are discussing the renewal of the transport corridor among our three countries. It will be construction of a new rail sections in line with all international standards. This is strategically significant and economically beneficial. Implementation of all these projects and programs, we believe, will promote transport and economic and trade connection, and also will reinforce our regional cooperation. At the meeting of the high level of the Commission in Minsk, we signed an agreement on free trade between Mongolia and the Free Economic Union. And the duties were reduced for hundreds of products, and also some of the duties have been eliminated. And this is an extremely important contribution to the regional integration programs. The Eastern Economic Forum will open up new opportunities to combat crises in Far East and Asia-Pacific region, and it will make our cooperation more active, and also it will ensure launching of various programs and projects. We say again that our adherence to all these projects remain unchanged. We have been supporting a number of events, measures and projects aiming at the regional integration. We are going to expand these works, and this is in the interest of all our countries. We wish all the participants of the Eastern Economic Forum a great success, good health, and everything best. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much indeed. I have a follow-up question. Mr. Gambazhan, you mentioned the strength of Siberia. Mongolia has been participating very actively at the SCO summit. It was a tripartite meeting. Here's my question. I was looking for some information, but are you going to get our gas, or are you going to just provide transit services? The We work on building this pipeline, the three of us, to bring it from Russia via Mongolia to China. We have completed all the feasibility studies, including necessary research. Now, this is a major project that the three countries implement. The parties agreed in principle on building this gas pipeline. And I can responsibly stress that we are ready to start building this pipeline. And we pay special attention to the fact that we would have to build it. During today's meeting with Mr. Miller, we discussed in detail all the relevant issues so that we implement this project without any accidents or delays. And we aim to enter into a tripartite intergovernmental agreement. Mongolia is not only a transit country. Mongolia can buy natural gas and connect its major cities to this gas pipeline. In other words, we can provide gas to our industries. This might help address environmental disaster of smog in Ulaanbaatar in winter, and this would bring new opportunities for our economy, and will become a strategically important national resource to help address pertinent issues we've been facing. Now, this project will have the capacity of 50 billion cubic meters of gas per annum. It's one of the largest projects of the entire century. I'm confident that this would be a major endeavor, and I want to congratulate everybody with this project. We are doing some studies, and in fact, devil is in details. We have to do some further research and have some discussions. Say, Mr. Miller, I've just agreed on that. Mr. President, the next question follows the discussion of the power of Siberia. The memo has been signed. It's made a major splash, and the agreement spans 30 years. I haven't seen specific prices anywhere. Well, obviously, this is due to some commercial secret issue. But anyway, the price is going to be lower than those on the European market. Back in the Soviet times, we used to have a joke. We provide oil to Europe using the Friendship pipeline, in fact, based on Friendship. What about gas to China? Well, this is something that brings mutual benefits. As to prices, well, those prices are first market-based, and second, they are calculated on the basis of the same formula that we used to employ when providing gas to Europe. We used the same formula. Well, the components of the formula, the inputs, may be different in different regions of the world. In Europe, it's one set of inputs. In Asia, it's a different set of inputs. However, the formula for pricing is the same, is identical. It's purely market-based. And those have been long negotiations. And when the participants of economic activities are trying to negotiate something and agree on something, and the majority of people here are of the same kind, you would all realize that this is not an easy process. Everybody is trying to get the outcome both negotiating parties are interested in. And this outcome, in the course of joint multi-year work done by Gazprom and Chinese partners, this outcome has been achieved. So once again, I want to congratulate everybody with that. This is one of the indeed largest energy projects in the world. Thank you. Well, since we started to talk energy projects, perhaps I can hear the story of how Laos made such a breakthrough, how you've managed to become the key Southeast Asia. Sir, could you tell us what is the secret behind this leap of yours? How you've managed to obtain such major outcomes? Why everybody is so keen to get use of your battery?
Thank you for the question. It's an important question. We deem that electric energy is a priority for us other than gas and petroleum, because Laos PDR is one of the countries that import 100% of its gas and petroleum. So electric energy is a green energy that we must adopt, and the government has been promoting more usage of electric power. As per development in the hydropower or electric energy, as we are endowed with abundant rivers and water sources, and the Mekong River has enabled us to create many hydropower plants, And 95% of energy we've been able to produce are from hydropower dams, and more than 12 megawatts, and we have the capacity to enhance it further to 30 megawatts. But due to climate change and other natural disasters has made it challenging for water management during rainy season and dry season. So therefore, we turn to alternative energy sources such as wind and solar power energy sources. And we thank President Putin for when His Excellency Thongloun Sisulit, President of Lao PDR, visited Russia at the end of July this year. We have prescribed together in the peaceful use of nuclear power, including for energy in the medical sector, agriculture, and we are of high confidence that through cooperation with the Russian Federation, we'll make sure our energy sector development will be stable, more stable. But as for battery of Asia or not, we cannot attest to that. But it is a priority of our development agenda. Through the development of technology and scientific methods, and also metadata centers to facilitate the IT sector. They all use energy, so therefore we must prioritize the domestic energy demands and then move towards exporting to our neighboring countries. And we are exploring further connectivity of the power grid to across ASEAN. In the past, Lao PDR have exported energy to Thailand and Vietnam and Cambodia. We also exported to Malaysia and Singapore. So now we are trying to move towards the second phase of those projects. So again, those are our priority of our energy sector, is to be sufficient for the domestic consumption and matching the export expectation of the neighboring countries. And the promising potentials of our energy is as I described just now. I thank you.
We're talking cooperation in Asia-Pacific, and you get me back to cooperation with our friends, our allies, the Chinese People's Republic. We've not mentioned India. There are many plans connected with that. But look, the United States is also part of Asia-Pacific. There are many stakeholders out there who would like to continue our engagement or start it anew. But we're talking Asia-Pacific, right? And we have some very good proposals on how to work with U.S. companies in Alaska. And there are resources available there. And we've got technology of producing and liquefying natural gas. And those technologies are much more efficient compared to what our American partners have, and they are aware of that. In fact, at the level of businesses, they are ready to cooperate. It's not up to us. I mean, we are ready, provided some political decisions are made. And that's the area where we're going to proceed. We can cooperate in the Arctic, too. And by the way, with our Chinese friends, we discussed the possibility of working in a tripartite arrangement on some of our Arctic fields already now. And in principle, all those possible options are on the table. It just takes some political decisions, but it is possible. And again, this would have been mutually beneficial. be it natural gas or oil. Who puts the obstacles to this process? Well, that's not a question for me to answer. I'm sorry, we're not putting any obstacles to this process. Look, at the beginning, you asked about our eagle, one of the symbols of our country, right? It looks both ways. I mean, two heads look both ways. Look at the eagle right now. Is it turning away from anybody? No, absolutely not. It continues to look both ways. Thank you. And finally, it is my pleasure to recognize the member of the Political Bureau of the Communist Party of China, Vice Chairperson of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress, Mr. Li Hongju. Over to you, sir. Your Excellency President Putin, Your Excellency Prime Minister of Laos, Mr. Song Say, Your Excellency Prime Minister of Mongolia, Mr. Sandashatra, ladies and gentlemen, friends, I'm extremely pleased to meet you in Vladivostok, a gem of the Russian Far East, at the 10th Eastern Economic Forum. This year, the Eastern Economic Forum marks its 10 years. 10 years ago, upon the initiative of President Putin, and thanks to your personal support, we started the glorious history of this forum. Thanks to the painstaking efforts over the years, the forum has become an important venue to establish cooperation in the Far East and to promote regional cooperation. The forum gives huge impetus to the development of the Russian Far East and the development of Northeast Asian economy. The past decade demonstrated not just the development of this forum, but also is an evidence of major breakthroughs in the Russian-Chinese relations. Under the strategic leadership of President Xi and President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, we deepen political trust. We continuously strengthen multifaceted cooperation between China and Russia. The all-embracing nature, broad scope, and high quality of bilateral cooperation is evidenced by the intensive cooperation and links between the countries. In this connection, I'd like to mention the high pace of cooperation between the northeast of China and the far east of Russia, thanks to personal efforts of our leaders. For many years, China has been the leading trading partner and foreign investor for the Russian Far East. In 2024, the trade between the northeast of China and the far east of Russia amounted to almost $106 billion, and it accounts for 43% of the total trade volume between the two countries. And it plays a most important role in the Chinese-Russian trade relations. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, this year marks the 80th anniversary of the Chinese people's victory over the Japanese invaders and the victory in the Second World War and the global anti-fascist war. 80 years ago, in the face of fascist forces, China and the Soviet Union and other peace-loving countries and peoples firmly upheld the historic truth and justice. And They decisively thwarted the efforts of the fascists. The Soviet Union and China were the key theaters of war in Asia and in Europe. And our countries suffered tremendous losses and made historic contributions to the victory of in the global anti-fascist war. In May and in September this year, President Xi and President Putin participated in anniversary festivities to commemorate the victory in the global anti-fascist war in Moscow and in Beijing, respectively. They upheld the approach in order to preserve the outcomes of the Second World War in memory of those outcomes. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, today we see that fundamental changes of global nature get accelerated, and we still face global challenges. A global governance shortage becomes increasingly evident. Many issues are no longer confined to internal affairs of a single country and cannot be addressed by a single country. A few days ago, President Xi at the SCO Plus meeting came up with the initiative on global governance, which emphasizes epoch-making topics of what kind of global governance system to be developed and how to improve the global governance. Now, this is a Chinese version of prompt response to global challenges and deepening global cooperation. It is a response to the aspirations of many parties and demonstrates responsibility of a large country and its desire to build a community of shared destiny. China and Russia are influential powers and are constructive forces in supporting global stability and improving global governance. We are ready to engage in identification of advantages enjoyed by the countries and establish mutually beneficial cooperation with all the countries of the region, including Russia, in mutual consultations. And we're ready to move together toward the bright future of peaceful coexistence and beneficial cooperation. In this connection, I'd like to share one message. First, peace and stability contribute to development. Peaceful and prosperous Northeast Asia is beneficial for all the countries in the region, and it meets the desires of all the peoples here. China has long been sticking to this course and has been following the course of establishing friendly relations with neighboring countries. China supports the countries of the region in the choice of their development path in line with their national realities. We are ready to help align national interests and to ensure regional and global stability and together respond to risks and challenges. Second, openness and tolerance contribute to prosperity. As the old Chinese wisdom says, openness leads to progress, whereas isolation leads to demise. No single country is on its own. We support open, transparent, and inclusive and non-discriminatory trade system. We support the development of open regional economies, unlocking the natural advantages and geographic advantages. We're ready to engage in joint consultations, and we're ready to together build logistics and trade chains, eliminate protectionism, contribute to free flow of capital, technologies, in order to support economic integration in the region. Third, mutual exchange and borrowing ideas help cement shared understanding. bringing people closer helps mutual understanding. Our countries are linked by rivers, by mountains. Our cultures influence each other, and traditional friendship has its roots in the past. We have to continue our friendly history. We have to deepen mutual exchange in education. We have to step up cooperation in education, tourism, culture, youth affairs, and we have to facilitate mutual visits and trips to encourage friendship and good neighborhood. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, Chinese wisdom states that if everybody joins forces, victory is inevitable. Peace and prosperity in this region are inseparable from the efforts of all the parties involved, and China is ready to open up its doors to share new development opportunities with all the countries in the world based on the new outcomes of the Chinese modernization and a higher level of our openness, which is ready to enhance friendship, mutually beneficial cooperation, so that we all could benefit from the development fruits in the region in the name of our bright and wonderful common future. With this, I'd like to wish all the participants effective work. Thank you very much.
Большое спасибо.
Thank you very much. And immediately after your address, I'd like to ask you about the meeting that happened yesterday, where it was openly stated that Russia will reciprocate on China's decision to offer visa-free regime. So my question is the following. Of course, development of tourism is good for our economies, it's good for cultural cooperation between our countries, but my main question to you is the matter of settlements. President Putin, imagine I want to go to China as a tourist. Visa and MasterCard are no longer available. Union Pay is an option. I got Union Pay card a while ago, but it is no longer accepted. It no longer works. And even those who can work are only offering settlements in rubles. So the only option would be to take cash, then exchange it for USD, or be more creative. I do not know, for example, how to use cryptocurrency, but maybe that's an option. My question to you, do you think there are certain prerequisites to simplify settlements between Russia and China? And the same question applies to Mr. Li Hongjong. First of all, I want to say that the decision of the political leadership, and I'd like to emphasize that this is a decision made on the political level, the decision to offer visa-free regime for residents of Russia to go to the territory of China was unexpected to us. We were not aware of such plans, and it was indeed a very pleasant surprise, and clearly this is a token of friendship that we highly appreciate, and undoubtedly that would contribute to quite a sharp increase in the number of tourist inbound and outbound trips, and certainly would create more favorable environment for business and would definitely bring our two countries closer. That is obvious, because in order to go to any country, including China, a regular citizen would have to go to one place to get a certificate, to collect them or bring them to the embassy. Well, all they have to do now is just buy a plane ticket and get on board. No red tape, no bureaucracy, and undoubtedly that would contribute to greater friendship and cooperation between our two countries, and we will certainly reciprocate this token of friendship, and we will do the same by offering visa-free regime to China. Now, as for tourist trips, certainly, settlements is an issue, payment settlements, and we are working on this matter proactively. It is high on the agenda for many financial institutes. I'm not going to dwell into the details right now because I wouldn't want to cause any excessive difficulties by this commentary for any potential future solutions. Obviously, we need to take into account the interests of financial institutes that may face certain level of sanctions and pressure. But the solution is available. We understand perfectly well that we need to create more favorable environment for tourists. Obviously, the most preferable option to make the use of the MIR payment system available or similar Chinese tools. Maybe they could be merged. Maybe it would be an option to use the banking cards issued by the third parties. But I can assure you that the central banks of both countries are thinking and are trying to find a solution to the matter. Just at one of the working meetings in the course of the visit of our delegation to China, the leaders of financial institutions and ministers of finance had meetings. That was happening in the presence of President Xi and myself. The dialogue is ongoing, and I'm sure the solution will be found. Well, we'll be waiting. Your Excellency, Mr. Li Hongzhong, can we please have comment from the Chinese side on the matter of settlements? Thank you for your question. The Chinese government has introduced visa-free regime for Russian citizens. This is an important outcome, made possible thanks to the arrangements achieved between the heads of states. This is an important token symbolizing deeper interaction between Russia and China and deepening of our cooperation. I've carefully listened to the response of President Putin to this question, and I believe that this answer is indeed very professional and sets the right priorities and focuses for our future development and future work. I'm not going to go into the details either, but I believe that our countries are working together, and whenever that happens, we are always able to eliminate any technical difficulties or issues, and that also includes the issue with settlements. And I'm sure we will be able to achieve our goal. The circulation of Chinese currency and settlements is one thing, but I have to say that in China we hardly ever use cash for any payments inside the country. We use a smartphone, and it makes it very efficient. There is very low risk of fraud. We do not use any cash. It's cash-free payments. And when I arrived to Vladivostok, I had a very good impression of this city. And here I was also able to use my smartphone to make a payment, just like I did it in Beijing. And it clearly shows that already now we have very good level of interoperability in terms of telecommunications. But the next step would be to focus on financial communications and improvement of financial transactions and settlements. But I'm convinced that through joint effort, we will be able to achieve this goal. I just commented on the Russia-Chinese cooperation. And I have to say that the freedom of movement of cash, capital, and people is crucial. And I'm sure that we shall be able to do that. Thank you very much for your response. Well, then I guess all I can hope for is the QR codes we could use as a means of payment. Now, from a nice, friendly agenda, I'd like to move over to a slightly different part of the world that is a bit less friendly towards us. Mr. President, you've answered to a lot of questions from fellow journalists. The press conference in China, those were related to the Ukrainian crisis, relationship between Russia and the USA, and everything related to the special military operation. Just yesterday, there was a meeting conducted in Paris, the meeting of the Coalition of the Willing. There were no specific decisions made based on the outcome of the meeting so far. Those were just talks, and it was announced that there is an intention to place boots on the ground in Ukraine. But President Trump reacted by saying that he would call you. My first question is, has President Trump called you already? And my second question is, what do you think of the suggestions made by the other party? President Trump and I have an open dialogue. There is an arrangement in place that, if needed, we can get in touch, talk to one another. President Trump knows that I'm open to those dialogues. I know that he is also open towards communication with us, but so far, based on the consultations taking place in Europe, we haven't had any communication with President Trump, and it would be hard for me to have those. Actually, I just returned from China, came directly here to the forum, but I can assure you that there are no issues with communication whatsoever. As for the potential placement of the troops in Ukraine, well, that was one of the root causes for the Ukrainians' desire to join NATO. So should there any troops be placed in Ukraine, especially now in the course of the military action, we would treat those as righteous goals for an attack, a righteous target that we will aim for. Should there be any arrangement that would allow us to achieve long-lasting peace, then I see no point for those troops to be positioned on the territory of Ukraine. As simple as that. If all the arrangements are achieved and the agreement is successful, no one should doubt that Russia would fully comply with the achieved arrangements. We shall treat the security guarantees with respect, and those are the security guarantees that have to be elaborated and work both for Russia and Ukraine. And just to reiterate, Russia will undoubtedly comply with those arrangements. But so far, nobody has discussed the security arrangements and assurances with Russia. Well, then all we have to do is wait. The time will show, I guess. My next question is on peace settlement. Just yesterday, you were saying that you recognize there is potential. You even invited Zelensky to visit Moscow, but Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs officially refused. Maybe I misunderstand that, but it looks like in the future we can't expect any nearest and immediate step to peaceful settlement. Well, I would require you to stick closer to the issues of cooperation in the Asia-Pacific region, where we are today. Although I do understand that we first need to attend to those most pressing issues and get them resolved, otherwise any kind of cooperation is troublesome. So this question is to be expected. What I can say is the following. Just recently, the leadership of the Ukrainian regime was not particularly nice, commenting on any potential cooperation with Russia, to put it softly. The Ukrainian regime excluded any potential conflicts. Now we hear them begging for those contacts, or at least offering those contacts. I've been saying it repeatedly that I am ready to those contacts. Well, the press conference in Beijing that you referred to is where I openly stated that I do not see any particular sense in having those talks, because it would be virtually impossible to reach agreements on the key matters with the Ukrainian side. Even if there is a political will expressed, which I strongly doubt, there are also legal and technical issues. And those mean that any kind of negotiations on the territorial matters have to be confirmed and validated at the referendum. That is what is stated in the Ukrainian constitution. In order to conduct the referendum, the martial law has to be stopped, and you can't conduct a referendum in a situation of a martial law. If the martial law is stopped in the country, then the presidential election has to be conducted immediately. And once the referendum is conducted, or if the referendum is conducted, irrespectively of the outcome of the referendum, the decision of the Constitutional Court has to be issued, and the Constitutional Court is not really operational in Ukraine. Because as far as I understand, once the Constitutional Court received a question to make a judgment on the legitimacy of the president, the Constitutional Court tried not to react to that, and then actually the head of Constitutional Court was banned from coming to his office to do his work. And the chairman of the Supreme Court is in prison, accused of corruption. And I'm sure it is very well known that there is plenty of corruption in Ukraine, but I do not know why you had to cherry-pick the head of the Supreme Court and put him to prison on this particular matter. But what we see in reality is that judicial system in Ukraine is virtually no longer existent. It's been exterminated. And this is just one more illustration of the so-called democratic nature of the Ukrainian regime. So this is an everlasting process that leads us into nowhere. But nonetheless, we have confirmed that we are ready to have meetings on the highest level. But look, Ukraine wants to have this meeting. They are suggesting we have this meeting. My answer was, I'm ready. Please do come. I guarantee you we will take care of security matters and we create good working environment. You have my word, 100% guarantee. But what we see is that Ukrainian side is saying, we want to have a meeting with you, but you go to a particular location for this meeting. Well, I guess they're asking for too much. So I will repeat, if somebody wants to meet us, we are ready. And the best time to have this meeting is the capital of Russia, the hero city of Moscow. President Putin, thank you very much for your response. If I may, just one more question, and then I promise we will continue about the Far East only. I wanted to ask you about the root causes of the special military operation. And again, at the press conference in Beijing, you stated that you see no obstacles for Ukraine to become the EU member. And exactly the same day, we saw the official address by the ex-president of Ukraine, Viktor Yanukovych, who had friendly relations to Russia. And he also used to say that he was looking towards the West and saw a Western-oriented future for Ukraine. It looks like you were talking about the same things. Well, I do not know how you interpreted that, but I can tell you how it actually happens. The situation evolves in the following manner. Indeed, Ukraine set itself an objective, and it's still accurate, to become an EU member. And this is a choice Ukraine is entirely authorized to make. It is entirely up to Ukraine to choose how they structure their international relations, how they structure their economic ties. Back then, when Mr. Yanukovych was the president of Ukraine, the problem for us was that when Ukraine would join the European economic ties, it would cause some economic problems to Russia, because Ukraine was part of the free trade area. We had free custom borders to Ukraine, and that would have certain consequences to us. So Ukraine would have to weigh all the odds and choose. Potentially, Ukraine would lose something by enjoying the free customs borders to Russia, and it, of course, would acquire something by joining the EU. And this is exactly the equation that President Yanukovych tried to settle, and he was quite upset when he saw the results, because if Ukraine was to open its borders to highly competitive products from EU, it would fully destroy manufacturing and production in Ukraine, and would also destroy the possibility of having any kind of economic ties with Russia. So President Yanukovych didn't want Ukraine to join the EU. He wanted Ukraine to become the EU member. I do not know what he would say now, but I know he was aiming for that, provided that the terms for Ukraine are acceptable. This matter had nothing to do with us, except the only fact that it would affect our interest in terms of cooperation with Ukraine economically wise. But otherwise, we never objected to any kind of integrational processes between Ukraine and Europe. As for security matters, this is a completely different question. Again, former President Yanukovych and the chairman of the government of Ukraine back then objected to the idea of Ukraine becoming a NATO member. And that is a matter that is directly affecting Russia in terms of securing our long-term interests. So what happened? As a result of coup d'etat, Yanukovych was removed from power. That was a legitimate president who objected to the idea of Ukraine becoming a NATO member. And as a result of this bloody coup, they brought those forces to power that supported the idea of Ukraine becoming a NATO member, and they still insist on this idea. This is something that we are not ready to agree to, despite the fact that every country has a choice to secure its national interests. Again, that kind of matters cannot be resolved without taking into account Russia's interests, because there is a clear rule stipulated in the European documents. The security of one country cannot be guaranteed through or at the cost of security of another country. Thank you. Russia, and especially so the Far East, is rich in mineral resources. Among others, it is also very rich in fisheries. I looked at some statistics and I wanted to share it with you. According to this statistic, in 2022, export of crab meat to China set an all-time high. It is 41,000 tons. The Russian crab meat consumed domestically was just around 8,000 tons for the same period. So it's a bit of a paradox. Looks like crabs are only moving towards China, Korea, and towards the east. I'm wondering whether there are sufficient processing capacities in the Far East so that we're not just getting those crabs and sell them through the auctions, but potentially process and sell domestically. Live crabs is the most expensive produce, and they are therefore selling it abroad because it's more expensive, it's more profitable. Well, it's not just about pricing, although prices are important and play a key role in this equation. But in order to enhance supply of crab meat in the Russian region, we would primarily need to address logistic issues, because we either carry it by rail, which is quite expensive, or by air, which is even more expensive. That is the problem. Delivery of fresh seafood, be that crab meat or fish, it normally goes to high-end restaurants. Why? Because these products have to be brought by air, and this is very expensive. So if we would take care of logistic chains, then that would change the situation. But I have to say that generally, the produce of the fisheries here in the Far East, if I remember correctly, is quite efficient, and about 75% of all the fisheries productions is processed here in the Far East. So today, the biggest problem is logistics. It's a delicate issue, and we're going to focus on that. So right now, we are already paying a lot of attention to the matter, and we intend to increase our opportunities to make sure that seafood, fish products, fisheries and crabs are evenly distributed between all regions of Russia. We are aware of this problem, the more so that according to the norms of the Ministry of Healthcare, so far, we are a little bit below the standard and recommended consumption of fish. About 28 kilos of fish should be consumed per capita per annum. And right now, the indicator for us is about 23 or 23.5 kilos of fish per capita per annum. So right now we are addressing this issue as well. So definitely there is work to be done. We are thinking about it, and hopefully this issue will be resolved.
Wonderful. Since we have mentioned transport and its accessibility, in the Far East, the domestic flight is a matter of not just comfort, but a matter of survival, because there's no other way of reaching other regions. And I would like to share a little story. There is a friend of mine living in Khabarovsk, and he had to fly to Vladivostok on some business trip. There were no flights, and those living in Vladivostok know that it is a difficult matter to find the ticket, the plane ticket. And some people tell me that they need some extra tires to get there via the car. So he spends 4 hours on the airport, and he fulfills all the procedures. And on his way to Vladivostok, due to bad weather conditions, they are sent to another airport in Khabarovsk. That means that a person spent 24 hours coming from Khabarovsk to Khabarovsk. That is a joke, but it explains a lot. When are we going to address this issue with medium-range aircraft? Because right now, I've got this information that the state leasing company has signed a contract on leasing 50 Baikal aircraft. Maybe I missed something. I do not know whether Mr. Trutnev is here. We talked to him, and he said that there is no Baikal. An aircraft was purchased, but it is not existing. Maybe you missed me. Maybe I should go to the Prosecutor General's office. Are there any prospects for domestic flights in the Far East? Unfortunately, when during the Soviet times there was quite a well-developed network of domestic air companies, it was lost in 1990s, in early 2000s. Little attention was paid to that, and you have mentioned a friend of yours. He was forced to fly from one key city to another via Moscow. We have established a local air company, and the key issue here is to purchase aircraft, medium-range aircraft for short trips. There are a lot of plans of the Ministry of Industry and Trade. Unfortunately, it takes a lot of time to address these issues. There is Baikal, there are other aircraft that are small, they should replace An-2. But this is a work in progress, and I wouldn't hide. At times we argue with our staff, so to speak. They need to accelerate this work. There are specific plans, there are specific models. They already fly, and I've been shown them. What we needed to have the large-scale production of this aircraft and to make them operational, and we will do our utmost to speed up this process. This is a problem that is still here, and it is a common knowledge. We will address it. I would not list all the aircraft. I'm talking about Baikal and other aircraft. They showed it to me, but we need to switch to large-scale production. Thank you. In your remarks, you talked about the growth of investment. Foreign investment is on the rise as compared to the past 4 years. I have the following question. If we take a look at the overall investment climate and where this investment, foreign investment, comes from, we're talking about several key countries, including the PRC. And in your address, I believe you have focused on the technological progress and the need to develop high-tech, complex production. Nevertheless, it's not a secret that money is invested in some resources, oil, gas, coal production, and the relevant infrastructure. Hence, the logical question begs itself. Is there a risk that we are stuck in this raw materials trap that will be considered as just an investment partner in this domain? There's no such a trap, no such risks. There would be such risks if we didn't do anything. You have pointed out my address, but one of the key tasks, since we're talking about the investment in the region, we need to make this region innovational, and that is not a problem of our partners that they invest in mineral resources production. That is our problem, and we need to create conditions for innovation, to create conditions so that people that are necessary for these areas could come here, and there is a certain trend. In this regard, we need to create the relevant environment, and rest assured, our partners would be glad to invest the promising industries, and the implementation of the relevant plans would also benefit them. There's no way other than that, and I'm positive that we will implement these plans. By the way, together with our partners and friends, we discussed these issues in Beijing, and overall, we need to build our effort, focusing it on high-tech economy. That's what we're going to do. That is the future of our economies. That is our common success, and this also has to do with the region of the Far East. Thank you. I'd like to ask you a question on the economy, a more general question. I took a look at Mr. Miller. When we're talking about natural resources, well, it is a basic understanding that you need to drill a hole and you'll get oil or gas. Mr. Michelson is here, and he knows a thing or two about LNG, and the technologies that he achieved are unique in the world. This is a high-tech area, and I'm not exaggerating here. It's not a joke. It's not a hyperbole. The same goes to the gas sector. Gazprom is cooperating with our Chinese friends and partners, and it is not confined to simply supplies. They have the so-called strategic partnership, which means that people are working together to develop high-tech industries, including gas sector, and there is a lot to work on in order to ensure the efficiency and the benefit for the suppliers and for the buyers. A great deal of high-tech solutions should be put in place. And this is the work within the strategic partnership between the interested companies. It has been established and it is underway. The thing is that we need to expand it to cover related areas, promising areas such as artificial intelligence and the like. And that's what we're going to do, certainly. We have an arrangement with China in aviation. I will move to another city in Russia, and we will deal with engine manufacturing. But we have plans in aviation, and incidentally, aviation sector is quite developed in the Far East, both combat and civil. Superjet 100 is manufactured in the Far East, and the same goes for shipbuilding. Thank you. I could joke that I didn't know how our plenary session would go, and I went to the headhunter, and I was searching for the jobs. But what kind of jobs are needed in the Far East? Well, drivers with high wages, and I haven't seen any IT experts that are needed. There are no job descriptions for IT experts. There was one job for developer, but that's not much. According to Sber Market Analytics, the business turnover is growing faster than nationwide. You've mentioned that already, but that is because of production. IT is lagging behind. In your view, should there be such a demand from employers? How can we address this issue? Should these IT experts come from other regions? How can we attract them to stay in the Russian Far East and treat this region as a home and not just some temporary place? You know, I have covered this extensively in my introductory remarks, and I said that young people come to this region. There are prospects, they're needed here, and we see this trend. However, this trend should be supported by the state. We need to shape a new image for the economic development of the region, primarily due to high tech. I do not know what you have seen on the websites, but definitely the CEOs of companies working here tell me constantly that there are no highly skilled experts. For instance, on Zvezda shipbuilding plant, we have been building high-capacity vessel that is unique, and we need investment here. Everything that has to do with high tech should be developed so that we would develop not only the mineral resources of the Arctic, of the Far East, but also to make this region part of a high-tech production in Russia as a whole. And that is our goal in mind, and that will be the new stage of the development of the region. President Putin, there is this case of skyrocketing wages. A driver gets 400,000 rubles, and that is another coin. Is it okay? And is it okay that they get such wages? I believe that the more people have, the better. I support you because it matters. We're talking about economy. If the wage is higher, a person spends more. If he spends more, then our products are more on demand, because as a rule, people want to purchase goods that are produced in our plants. That means that that is another economic factor that is positive, besides the fact that people start to live better. Thank you. And certainly, since we're talking about wages, I want to talk about the overall situation in the Russian economy. A lot has been said in the forum. I'm not the only one here. I understand, Mr. President, but I have so much questions to you. I will definitely ask questions to our guests, but now I would like to delve on the economic situation. German Graf said that he states a technical stagnation of the Russian economy. Do you agree with him? No. Mr. Graf, that's how it is. Well, he knows that. We keep in touch with him. He participates in many meetings of ours that we have at my office with the government and the central bank. And some members of the government have the same view, since allegedly the central bank keeps the high rate in order to combat inflation. You complained about high prices in shops, but the goal is for ensure lower prices for consumers and for businesses. We can talk about many things. I do not like to make any assessments. I have my opinion. I do not like to make any assessments on the work of the central bank. And by the way, in the international financial community, the Central Bank of Russia is highly respected, and I know this firsthand. But we're doing it deliberately. We have 4.3% of GDP growth 2 years ago, 4.4% growth last year. The inflation has increased a bit. We need to address macroeconomic problems. To this end, we We need to ensure calm and smooth decrease in prices in order to prevent the price hike. Indeed, I know about that. We talk on a daily basis. Just yesterday we had this conversation. Some believe that there's been a cool down. However, the loaning is still ongoing. You can ask Mr. Graf himself. The rate has decreased. In certain sectors, the situation is quite difficult, and there are some people here who understand it full well. But at the same time, everybody understands that if there is an inflation that is on the rise, we cannot make any projections, any plans for years to come. That is a very subtle matter. You can ask banks, the head of the VTB, he would tell you, indeed, they do too much, the cool down is too much. Well, he complains a lot about the interest rate. Indeed, and the Economic Development Ministry will tell you the same thing. And, well, there's truth to their words. And I believe that at the end of the day, we'll be able to address this issue to keep the necessary growth rates with the minimum level of inflation. I believe that it would be enough for such format of discussion. Thank you. A question to Mr. Sonsai Sepandon. In 2021, China and Laos PDR opened the largest railroad. We're talking about high-speed highway, and it will be extended to Thailand. According to discussions, this was a technically difficult project in terms of infrastructure. I have the following question. Are there any chances and prospects to link it with the ports of the Far East? How can it accelerate our trade? It will definitely accelerate our trade and cooperation. How is it real? Have you discussed something of this sort?
For a safer, a lower cost, and faster transportation, we use the railway, a modern railway, which is much more modern than the previous years, in the previous eras when we used steam trains. We turn ourselves from, as I mentioned, we turn ourselves from a landlocked to a land-linked country, which is one of the promising sectors of Laos PDR. Through support from the Chinese government, we have a joint project of the Lao-China Railway project, and we have successfully implemented. Even though the construction period was hit with COVID-19, but COVID-19 was not too major of an obstacle, and we were able to overcome it as part of our strategic cooperation. And in line with the policy of, and in line with the BRI initiative, I am of full confidence if we have an agreement between the Lao government, the Chinese government, and Russia, we can deliver and transport the products from Laos through China to the Far East, including Vladivostok of Russia, and as well. The railroad can open up the framework for Russia ASEAN and China ASEAN, the access of the products to the markets of these three major markets. Again, we emphasize that it's an alternative choice of transportation that is safer and cleaner and faster. At the same time, the Lao government is studying possibility of sea transportation from Vladivostok, perhaps through China in Hainan Island, to the Vietnamese seaport, which at the moment we have already agreed to. Vong Ang seaport has been designated as a Lao port, which is a precious gift from Vietnam. Even though we don't have access to the sea borders, we don't have borders connected to the sea, but we have a seaport in Vietnam. and which is an addition to the transportation route from Laos, China to Russia and vice versa. And also Mongolia, we can use the same infrastructure of transportation to exchange our products and trade. And this will bring about many benefits from the development of the Lao-China rail work in one shot. Thank you.
Владимир Владимирович, есть что, так сказать, парировать в ответ?
Нет, мы это обсуждаем с нашими друзьями из Лаоса. И вчера только что тоже об этом говорили. Мы в контакте с нашими партнерами из третьих стран, в том числе из Вьетнама, и действительно обсуждаем все эти
We are discussing all these logistic possibilities and discussing how to expand that. And we have opportunities as for the railway lines here in Vladivostok. I know that this is a sensitive question. We need to create them to make them better and bigger, and there are a lot of them in the territory of Vladivostok. You mentioned that as well. They occupy not the biggest, they occupy a large part. It's an eastern polygon, Trans-Siberian line and Amur line. There are more of them in the direction of the Sea of Okhotsk. We are going to work on that to develop it further. I speak about it all the time, and the colleagues discuss it as well. This is a huge opportunity for the development in the Far East and for the country in general. The volumes of transportation increased greatly. Nothing to say about that in this regard. And Trans-Arctic corridor will be developed as well. There is a lot to work on together with the Northern Sea route. As for our friends in the Asia-Pacific regions, I hope that all our efforts to develop transport logistics with the regions of the Far East will be favorable in this regard and will affect positively for trade relations with our friends in Laos. Thank you very much. You are welcome. I would like to note that this is my first time in Vladivostok. I am greatly impressed by the dimensions and the fact that the city is very interesting and it's very clean. It's very interactive. There is what you see. It has its authenticity. I went to the tour, and there is a contrast, and I was surprised that the central cities look great, but when you go to the side of Pivek you won't see a golden bridge there. How can we make it this way to make life comfortable in the faraway cities, for them to have their own authenticity and beauty? I'm speaking about the infrastructure. Everywhere it is like this. The center of the city looks differently from the suburbs. This is a question to be asked to the regional authorities, to the city authorities, for the development of our villages to make it comfortable for the population. As for the small cities, we have programs for development of the residential areas. There are about 800 cities, 804 with the population less than 50,000 people. It's a huge program for development of small cities in Russia. There are a lot of areas, and it's quite effective for small cities, but we need to expand this work. As for the Far Eastern and the Arctic regions, we have a separate program. There are 22 cities. There are resources allocated for the development in those areas. Work is underway on some of them. I mentioned that already, and this is one of the key areas. Together with our colleagues, we discussed it. that were at the beginning of their way. It was very effective and very demanded work. And speaking about the necessity to give an impulse of the development of the economy, I said it as well. We need to attract prepared specialists that need conditions, including social conditions, kindergartens, schools, education, medical care. Everything shall develop as a whole thing. There are programs for 22 cities. We have financing for these programs, and I'm convinced we are going to expand this program. We are speaking about things related to the costs. I'm trying to ask about the deficit of the budget. In 2025, it was planned to have $1.2 trillion rubles. It increased to 1.8 trillion, and changes are provisioned. I heard 8 trillion. This number, I am not connected with the economic area. What do you think? How can we level this up? What are the mechanisms to be used? I would like to express my opinion on this point. It's not that it seems like this. The expenses are growing, and it has to do with the plans of infrastructure development in the Far East. It requires a lot of resources, a lot of funds. The Eastern Polygon, the development of the railways, of the motorways, airports, and other infrastructure. Our costs, our expenses are connected with the costs on education in general in the country. Expenses in defense and security, expenses connected with the special military operation. These are all expenses. And first we need to work on the income. And there are things to be discussed here. It doesn't mean that we need to increase the taxes. We need to increase the efficiency, the capacity, the production, introduce new technology to organize production in a better way. And I am convinced that we have the resources to work on. There are a lot of resources, and we have a lot of opportunities. And there are also other things that are worth to be mentioned. Some of our colleagues in the government consider that the deficit can be increased as well, and there is nothing terrible about that, because the level of our debt lowered, and our internal and external debts, it's quite acceptable. It's a low level. It guarantees the stability of the entire operation of our financial system and the budgetary system. The budget is based on the balanced system. It's not a simple work. It's a complex one that requires a lot of strength and energy to find the balance among different industries of the economy. The government is coping with it. Vladimir, I saw that at the previous sessions it was discussed at the Ministry of Finance and Sberbank. Within the budget, you are going to introduce artificial intelligence, and the artificial intelligence will help to shape the budget, if I understand it correctly. What do you think about the introduction of the artificial intelligence? I think that it's a positive thing. The artificial intelligence can only assist, at least at the moment, at this level of development of the technology in the area of artificial intelligence. As of today, the instrument can only be used as an assistance to take the decision on the level of the central bank and the government of Russia. I would like to ask the next question to Mr. Lee. China achieved great success in the area of artificial intelligence. It is one of the leaders. Two of the most popular neural networks are the American and the Chinese one. I know that China has been developing for quite a long time the digital economy. It's a new innovative way of economic activity. We are actively introducing the processes as well. And the question is, what do you think about this, your leadership? How China plans, what do you plan to do for the cooperation of to continue the cooperation between the artificial intelligence and the government? What is the plan? Thank you for the question, dear moderator. You touched upon a very important topic. Artificial intelligence is a way to progress for the humanity. Artificial intelligence is a new productional force that moves our evolution, and it's important to develop it. All countries of the world, including China, Russia, the United States, and other countries, they pay a lot of attention to the development of the artificial intelligence and to maintain the technology. As the President Xi Jinping said, in 2023, the artificial intelligence in the world will be developing very fast, and there are 4 principles: popularization, its further advancement, as well as our joint use of the resources of the humans and machines, and the promotion of these technologies in our life. These are the principles that he mentioned. And there are 3 areas where, at the moment, we are going to implement this area: scientific innovations, scientific development. Innovations is a central element of the developing of the concept of artificial intelligence to increase the calculational capacity, creation of neural networks, models. It is connected with the advanced technology and development in general. It is connected with the preparation of personnel, work with the employees. It helps us a lot to train personnel. We create new platforms. The United States are the leaders in this direction, but China makes a lot of efforts to be first in this area. For example, artificial intelligence, its level of forecasts and the level of monopolization of China in this area achieves 60%, and we are growing in what refers to the monopolization of monopoly of the artificial intelligence. It's our benefit. We are exporting this technology. The second component, we are implementing our approaches. Artificial intelligence for us is a way for the development of the humanity, is a way to achieve our well-being. As Xi Jinping said in his speeches, he described the concept of one faith for the humanity, and guided by these ideas, in this concept, one of the key components is a rich, powerful state, the promotion of the well-being for all layers of the population. And we are following this way to promoting our technology. For example, Chinese network DeepSeek is a model that makes it possible to get big results when using it. It's an advanced technology. We could reduce the costs and overcome the barrier to get the benefits with minimum costs. This is one of the ways for the development of the artificial intelligence. To increase calculational capacity, it gives new possibilities. We opened new areas of its use. For example, such technologies as unmanned devices, control of technological processes. The open code allows us to use it effectively, to use the technologies in an effective way. By this, we can reach new heights in our work, developing the technologies of artificial intelligence and introducing the new ones. Getting benefits from the use of the artificial intelligence, we pay a lot of attention to the environment, to the situation that is necessary for the use of these technologies. And it is all needed for to increase the capacity of the production. And today, the area of application of artificial intelligence in production demonstrates high growth. And capitalization reaches 700 billion yuan per year. It has a huge growth rate. There are a lot of areas that can help us to improve the well-being of our population, develop these technologies everywhere to make the life better, improve the territories, and spread the technology in the interests of the production, in the interests of enterprises. We have new benefits by these technologies, and the multiple use of these technologies is a key area of development of our country. We open the gates using the technology of the artificial intelligence. And we would like to see that in Russia the technology is also development. Like you, Mr. President, and our President jointly said that we need to actively use the platform of the Far East and our territory for the development of artificial intelligence in our countries. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm not going to ask if you can administrate the country with artificial intelligence. What do you think? Can we trust a key rate to be installed by the artificial intelligence? I'm sorry, Elvira. I just said that I'm convinced that the possibilities of the artificial intelligence can be used for any solutions, and they should be used to take decisions in all areas, including in the area of the responsibility of the central bank. But to take decisions of this sort, it shall be done by a human responsible for the decisions taken. As for artificial intelligence, we cannot take it's just an instrument. And these are humans that should work. Our Chinese participant, our friend from China, he has a very high political rank. He is a member of the political bureau of the Socialist Party of China. He gave expert evaluations in the area of in the very serious area of artificial intelligence. People should take the decisions, and these are the people who should work in China and in Russia, including using the artificial intelligence and developing these instruments.
Well, I hope artificial intelligence won't substitute me. I'm speaking about hosts like me. Why? Why do you say so? Because there are neural networks and deep fake. Oh, my career is over, or it is in danger. Well, but what about humane relations if only artificial intelligence asks you questions? Well, maybe people will develop with assistance of artificial intelligence. Dear guests, if there are some comments or questions in addition to what we have been discussing, because we are close to the end, I have one last question on my list, and it will be more of a philosophical nature, and it will be about Far East. Oh, I don't see any hands raised in the audience. Well, I believe that the Far East lives in the future, because in Moscow it is the morning, and now here it is the afternoon already. The global world is quite special now. We speak about turbulence, and it is not only about Ukraine, it is the Israeli-Palestine crisis and others. My question is, what is the future of Russia in this world, and what about the world of the coming decades? Will it be more of a Western type or an Eastern type? You know, it will be multipolar. Thank you. Right. Then I can just express my gratitude for this honor for me to ask these questions. And a final thing, I'm so grateful to the Far East for this warm welcome. Tomorrow, some of us even today, will fly to the West. And we were discussing the double-headed eagle at the very beginning of this plenary session. And I liked what you said, that we are not choosing just one direction. We are looking in both ways. And I believe this is extremely important about this forum under the slogan, Far East Cooperation in the name of peace and prosperity. Thank you. And I would like to thank all the participants, our international guests, my colleagues who have been participating in this session, and the whole audience for this common work, because it is also quite difficult. And I would like to ask our charming host for organizing such an interesting discussion. Thank you very much. This is the highest appraisal of my work. Thank you.